They sent her to the human as a joke bride. You should have seen their faces when she came back pregnant. Elias had been calling their trading platforms gas station society in his head for 6 cycles now, ever since the Stardust Drifter became stardust over whatever poisonous atmospheric cocktail stewed beneath them. He was a mechanic and systems analyst, not an anthropologist or a diplomat. His job was to keep things running, not navigate the labyrinthine social strata of 6 different alien factions living in precarious, iridescent cities drifting like plankton in a sky ocean. He'd survived the crash, jury-rigged a life support suit from scrap, and somehow found his way onto one of the smaller, less guarded Aethel platforms, hoping to signal for rescue. Rescue hadn't come. What had come was a delegation of beings who shimmered like heat haze off asphalt, their forms elegant, their skin a tapestry of swirling bioluminescent patterns that shifted with their moods, usually too subtly for him to decipher. They called themselves the Resonant, and they looked at him with a mixture of revulsion and cold curiosity, like a particularly persistent fungal growth. He was discordant, they said, a disruption to their delicate, crystal-powered resonance technology that kept the Aethel afloat. He was a problem to be contained, studied, and perhaps, eventually discarded. He lived in a repurposed cargo bay, given scraps of nutrient paste and water synthesized from the atmospheric gases. He was property, less than a citizen, slightly more than a pest. And then they brought her. She arrived in a procession of austere, black-clad figures whose light patterns were muted, controlled. She was taller than him, her limbs unnaturally graceful, her face sharp and beautiful in a way that felt less organic and more sculpted, like ice. Her own light patterns were almost entirely suppressed, only the faintest, cool blue pulse visible at her temples. They introduced her as Vexa, of the line of Kalen. The High Arbiter, a being whose light patterns pulsed with an almost overwhelming authority, spoke in their resonant clicks and hums, translated for Elias by a crackling, imperfect device they'd given him. Vexa, of Kalen is offered to you, Elias creature, as decreed by the Assembly of Line. Elias blinked. Offered? To him? The joke was clear. They viewed him as a blight, a thing barely worthy of containment. To offer one of their own, especially someone who carried the weight of a significant bloodline. He'd picked up enough on the internal politics to know Kalen was important, currently out of favor but important, was an insult. It wasn't an alliance, wasn't diplomacy. It was a deliberate, calculated humiliation. For him, yes, but more acutely, for her and her line. He looked at Vexa. Her posture was rigid, her suppressed light patterns almost vibrating with tension. Her face was unreadable, a mask of cold, noble endurance. The Arbiter's translator crackled again, its synthesized voice flat. She is bound by the right of proximity until resonance is achieved, or impossibility declared. She remains within your dwelling. The Arbiter's patterns flared with something Elias recognized as thinly veiled amusement, a unique pairing. Let us observe. They left, the delegation's controlled shimmering receding down the corridor. Elias and Vexa were left standing in the cramped cargo bay, the air thick with unspoken words and the low hum of the Aethel's resonant lift. Elias finally found his voice. Okay, full disclosure, I'm kinda new to this. What exactly is a right of proximity, and does it involve shared bathroom facilities? Vexa's head tilted infinitesimally. Her blue temple lights gave a faint, cold flicker. It means, her voice was low, resonant, utterly devoid of warmth, that for the span of this debasement my proximity to your essence is mandated by sacred law, until the mandated trial is complete. She looked around the cargo bay, her gaze lingering on the bare metal walls, the cot, the crude gravity filter Elias used for water. Her light patterns remained carefully, perfectly suppressed. This is suboptimal, Elias snorted, a sound that seemed unnervingly loud in the quiet space. Yeah, suboptimal kinda describes my last 6 months. Look, Vexa, or whatever you prefer, this is clearly some kind of political maneuver, right? They're trying to stick it to your family by marrying you off to the resident human trash fire. I get it, no offense taken honestly, but what exactly am I supposed to do? Vexa finally looked directly at him, her eyes large, dark pools reflecting the faint blue light from her temples. There was something ancient and weary in that gaze, utterly at odds with her youth and elegant form. You are to exist, she stated, her voice precise, clinical. I am to observe your discordant nature, to understand if it poses a true threat to the aethal stability, as the assembly claims, or if it is merely different. She paused a long tense beat, and per the right of proximity, to attempt the bond. Elias had heard whispers of the resonance bonding rituals, deep, almost telepathic connections forged through carefully controlled resonance, meant to unify lines and ensure genetic compatibility. The idea of attempting one with her under these circumstances felt absurd. Attempt the bond, he echoed, trying to keep his voice light. Here, in my metal box? Is there like mood lighting involved? Or is it more of a hold hands and hope for the best situation? A flicker of something, was it surprise, crossed Vex's face, quickly masked. Her voice remained level. The bond requires resonance, a deep harmony of frequencies. It is believed your species lacks the necessary attunement. Hence, the jest. She gestured vaguely around the cargo bay. This environment is chosen to maximize the dissonance, to ensure failure. Not so that was the play. Ensure the bond fails. Prove the human is incompatible, dangerous. Use it to further disgrace her line. It was cold, brutal politics, wrapped in ritualistic performance. So, they sent their finest tactician, Elias mused, looking at her assessing gaze, to monitor the pest and fail a ritual. Sounds like a promotion. He leaned against the metal wall, crossing his arms. Look, I don't want to make trouble. I just want off this giant glowy blimp. If cooperating with this charade gets me closer to a ride home, I'm in. What's the first step of this rite of proximity? Vex's blue temple lights pulsed once sharper this time. The first step is enduring. She moved towards the far end of the cargo bay, choosing a spot furthest from his cot, near the auxiliary power conduit. She sat, her posture still unnervingly perfect, and seemed to simply observing. Elias watched her for a long moment. This was going to be a long debasement. He sat on his cot. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the aethel and the faint, and almost imperceptible shifting of her suppressed light patterns. He wondered if she was comfortable, if she was as uncomfortable as he was. Days bled into cycles. Vexa maintained her silent vigil, observing him with that unnerving intensity. She ate the nutrient paste with a delicate distaste that was almost comical. If Elias had been in the mood to laugh, he went about his meager routine, checking the atmospheric filters, trying to maintain the translator unit, sketching the aethel structure on scavenged metal plating. He'd caught glimpses of her world from his cargo bay port, the other aethel floating like distant jewels, the terrifying swirling colors of the atmosphere below. It was beautiful and deadly. He occasionally tried to engage her in conversation, mostly out of boredom. So, Vexa, question for you. These glowy patterns, is it like fashion, or do they actually do something? She would answer, her voice cool and clipped. They are external manifestations of our internal resonance, a measure of our alignment with the aethel's harmony. Right. So if I'm discordant, does that mean I'm like a bad note in a symphony? Precisely. Catchy. So about this bond thing, is it like a handshake, a complicated dance? It requires a merging of resonance fields, a synchronization at a fundamental level. It is intimate. Her temple lights flickered faintly at the word, the first genuine sign of emotion he'd seen. Intimate, he repeated, a slow grin spreading across his face. Okay, now I'm intrigued. You know, back on Earth, intimacy usually involves, well, getting kinda close. Is that part of the rite of proximity? He saw the faintest tension ripple through her rigid form. Proximity is required. Physical closeness aids the alignment. He scooted closer on his cot. How close we talking? Personal space. Like, can you smell my nutrient paste breath close? He expected her to recoil or snap. Instead, she turned her head, her gaze unwavering. Closer than this. He leaned closer. She didn't move. He could see the almost invisible shimmering beneath her skin now. Minute fluctuations beneath the suppressed blue. How about now? Her voice was barely a whisper. Closer. He was now less than an arm's length away. He could feel a faint warmth radiating from her, and a strange, subtle vibration in the air between them. Her blue temple lights intensified slightly. Closer, he shifted again, until their knees were almost touching. The vibration grew stronger, a low hum that resonated deep in his bones. It was unlike anything he'd ever felt. It was unnerving, but not unpleasant. It felt fundamental. "This close?" he asked, his voice softer now. Vexa didn't answer with words. Her hand, cool and smooth, slowly rose and hovered uncertainly near his arm. Her suppressed patterns were fluctuating more now, brief, involuntary flashes of silver and violet. "The rite requires physical contact for the resonance attempt," she stated, her voice a little breathy. It wasn't a command or a request, just a statement of fact. The air hummed, building. Elias looked from her hand to her eyes, which were now wide, revealing depth he hadn't seen before. This wasn't a joke to her. This was a profound, terrifying obligation. He reached out, his hand calloused from years of working with metal. His fingers were rough against her skin, which felt unnervingly smooth, almost like polished glass, yet warm. The instant their skin touched, the low hum intensified dramatically, vibrating up his arm and into his chest. It felt like he had just connected to a power source, vast and ancient. Vexa gasped, a small, sharp sound. Her light patterns exploded into a chaotic, brilliant display beneath her skin. Emerald green, vibrant gold, deep crimson, chasing across her face, down her neck, over her hand clasped tightly around his. It was breathtaking, terrifying. Elias felt something shift inside him, a deep-seated frequency aligning with this alien resonance. It wasn't logical, wasn't physical in a way he understood. It was emotional, existential. He saw flashes in his mind's eye, not his memories, but something else, something alien. Towering crystalline structures bathed in impossible light, the silent glide of Aethel through endless sky, the murmur of countless voices in unison, a feeling of profound belonging, and an equally profound loneliness. Vexa's breath hitched. Her grip tightened painfully on his hand. Her eyes were wide, fixed on his face, her luminous patterns rioting. "Discordant," she whispered, her voice strained. "It should be chaos, failure," but it wasn't failure. It was raw, powerful connection. A surge of something hot and unfamiliar coursed through Elias, mirroring the intensity of her light. It wasn't just sensation, it was knowledge, feeling. He felt her carefully buried humiliation, her icy fear of failure, her desperate, silent longing for something real beyond the brittle, ritualized world she inhabited. It was overwhelming. He saw himself through her eyes, not a pest, but a strange, solid object in her fluid, resonant world. Unaligned, yes, but perhaps anchoring. The air crackled. The vibrations peaked, then slowly began to subside, leaving behind a strange, lingering echo in his chest, and a faint, tingling warmth. Where they touched, Vexa's light patterns gradually receded, pulling back into their suppressed state, leaving only the faint blue pulse at her temples. But they were different now, less controlled, more present. She pulled her hand away slowly, her gaze still fixed on him. Her mouth was slightly open, her chest rising and falling rapidly. The cool, clinical facade was gone, replaced by something raw and shaken. "That was unexpected," she finally said, her voice rough. Elias could only nod. His mind was still reeling from the alien resonance, the flood of foreign sensation and emotion. "Yeah," he managed, his own voice shaky. "Unexpected. For both of us, I think. The rite of proximity, the joke bond. It had done something neither of them had anticipated. It had forged a connection, unintentional, raw and undeniably real, and in her eyes the carefully constructed mask of the cold tactician had shattered. He saw confusion, fear, and a flicker of something else he couldn't name, something that looked suspiciously like wonder. The air in the cargo bay felt different after that. Tense, charged. The shared experience of the unexpected resonance attempt hung between them, heavy with unspoken implications. Vexa was no longer just a ritualistic fixture. She was someone he had glimpsed beneath the surface, someone whose carefully controlled world had been visibly shaken. Her cool demeanor returned, but it was thinner now, less convincing. Sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, her gaze would drift towards him, and he'd catch the faintest involuntary shift in her suppressed light patterns, a brief flicker of residual color before she clamped down on it. Elias, for his part, found himself observing her with a new intensity. He was no longer just trying to survive or find a way home. He was trying to understand her, this alien woman, whose inner light he had accidentally glimpsed. The resonance attempt hadn't just synced frequencies. It had left behind a strange, subtle echo in his mind, a faint sense of her emotional state. He could feel the edges of her tension, her quiet calculation, and beneath that, a persistent, low thrum of fear. Vexa began to change their routine. She would ask him questions, not about his species or his technology, but about his feelings. "You exhibit signs of humor," she stated one cycle, watching him sketch. "Explain its function." It's like finding something funny. It helps you deal with things that suck." "Suck?" "Yeah. Things that are bad, unpleasant, like being stuck in a box with an alien who thinks you're discordant." Her temple lights gave a sharp, almost amused pulse. "I perceive the application. Does it alleviate the suck?" "Sometimes. Mostly, it just makes it slightly less sucky." She considered this, her gaze distant. "Resonance provides harmony. Perhaps humor serves a similar, albeit cruder, function for your species." It wasn't just conversation, it was analysis, but it was also connection, a hesitant exploration of alien minds. One cycle, a tremor shook the aethel, not a structural shift, but a deep, unsettling vibration that resonated with the lingering echo of their bond attempt. Vexa's light patterns flashed wildly before she suppressed them. Her mask of control faltered. "What was that?" Elias asked, standing up. Vexa looked towards the cargo bay door. Her eyes narrowed. "A disruption. A dissonance field targeting the aethel's core. Resonance. It is the work of the corrupted." The corrupted. He'd heard the term whisper. A faction, a bloodline perhaps, who sought to seize control by disrupting the aethel's delicate balance. "They were the villains. They seek to destabilize the aethel," Vexa continued, her voice tight, "to shatter the assembly's control. They believe they can then impose their own twisted resonance." The cargo bay door hissed open, revealing not the stern figures of the assembly, but two beings whose light patterns were dark, fractured, pulsing with aggression. "Villains indeed." "Vexa of Kalen," one hissed, their voice guttural, discordant. "The assembly's dokes, the human's consort. You will come with us. Your line's failure will serve as a lesson." This wasn't just about her line's disgrace anymore. This was danger. Vexa stood, her form straightening, the suppressed blue light at her temples intensifying. Her face remained a mask, but the aura radiating from her was no longer cool detachment. It was a coiled spring of lethal tension. "I am bound by the right of proximity," she stated, her voice low and resonant, carrying surprising power. "My presence here is mandated. Your interference violates sacred law." The two corrupted figures pulsed with dark light, advancing into the cargo bay. "Sacred law is for the weak, Iris." The second one sneered. "The aethel is failing. Dissonance is the new order. Your bond with this thing is an abomination. It will be cleansed." They raised weapons Elias didn't recognize, pulsing with dark energy. Elias, despite his lack of combat training, reacted instinctively. He grabbed the heaviest piece of scrap metal nearby, a disconnected conduit pipe, and stepped partially in front of Vexa. "Hold it, glowworms," he said, hefting the pipe. "She's not going anywhere with you." It was a ridiculous gesture against their energy weapons, but it was the only one he had. Vexa's suppressed light patterns flickered wildly, revealing flashes of alarm, then something akin to surprise, and finally a fierce emerald green. The corrupted hesitated, momentarily taken aback by the human's unexpected defiance. "The human thinks it can protect you?" One scoffed, their dark light pulsing. "Pathetic." They fired. Elias didn't think. He dove, pulling Vexa down with him behind a stack of discarded plating. The energy blast seared the metal above them. The heat was intense, the air filled with the smell of ozone and burning insulation. Vexa was pressed against him, her body rigid with tension. Her light patterns were a storm beneath her skin, fear, anger, and a surprising potent surge of something protective. The shared ordeal of their near resonance had forged something fragile but real between them. And now, facing an external threat, it was hardening into unexpected unity. "We cannot stay here," Vexa whispered, her voice urgent. "They will breach this compartment." "Got any brilliant ideas, tactician?" Elias asked, his eyes scanning the small space. He saw the auxiliary power conduit, near where she had originally sat. It was old, jury-rigged. He knew how to overload things. He also knew it could blow a hole in the hull. "Maybe," Vexa said, her gaze following his. Her light patterns shifted to a calculating silver. "If we can create a localized resonance overload, shatter their field, perhaps escape through the resulting breach before the assembly forces arrive." It was insane, using the very energy that kept the city afloat to blast a hole in it. But it was a plan, and it relied on that strange, unpredictable connection they had accidentally forged. "Localize it overload," Elias muttered, understanding dawning. "You mean we amplify that resonance thing we did?" Vexa nodded, her expression grim. "Your unique frequency, combined with a controlled surge of my own, directed through the conduit, it will require precise timing and deep resonance. Deep resonance, the kind their joke bond was never meant to achieve." "All right," Elias said, gripping the metal pipe tighter. "You handle the glowy stuff. I'll handle the plumbing." The corrupted are attempting to cut through the plating. The air vibrated with their dark energy. "Now Vexa," Elias scrambled towards the conduit. Vexa followed, positioning herself beside the ancient, humming machine. She placed her hands flat against its surface, closing her eyes. Her light patterns flared to life again, controlled this time, radiating outward in waves of pure, vibrant energy. "Join your resonance," she commanded, her voice echoing strangely. "Focus the feeling, the strange echo of connection, the raw emotion, the shared glimpse into each other's fears and longings." Elias placed his free hand on the conduit, near hers. He focused on that echo, on the image of her luminous patterns, on the shared danger and the acceptant bond. He pushed. The conduit screamed. Not a metallic shriek, but a high-pitched whine that vibrated in Elias's teeth and bones, resonating with the energy Vexa was channeling. Her light patterns intensified, brilliant gold and emerald coiling around her arms, spreading like fire up the conduit. Elias felt that familiar, overwhelming surge of connection, the merging of frequencies. But this time it was focused, directed. He saw not just glimpses, but a flood of Vex's intent, a desperate need to protect her line's honor, a fierce loyalty to the Ethel, despite its flaws, and a profound, almost physical rejection of the corrupted's discordant energy. He also felt her fear, cold, sharp, and directed squarely at the risk of failure, at the possibility of their combined resonance collapsing and pulling them both down. "Now," Vexa yelled, her voice strained. The conduit bucked and shuddered. There was a blinding flash of light, brighter than anything Elias had ever seen, and a deafening crack that felt like reality tearing. The air was thrown outwards. Elias was slammed against the opposite wall, the conduit pipe flying from his hand. His ears rang. Smoke filled the cargo bay. Vexa was sprawled near the conduit, her light patterns flickering erratically but alive. The corrupted were reeling, their dark energy fields shattered by the blast, their forms momentarily thrown into disarray. And where the conduit had been, there was a jagged hole in the hull, venting cargo bay atmosphere into the terrifying, beautiful sky ocean outside. They had done it. They had turned a joke bond into a weapon. "Go," Vexa gasped, pushing herself up. She was favoring one side, her movements less fluid. Elias didn't hesitate. The corrosive atmosphere would kill him in seconds, without a suit. But the Ethel's atmosphere filters were designed to handle minor breaches. He grabbed Vex's arm. Her skin felt strangely cool and dry despite the chaos. "Which way?" he yelled over the din. Vexa pointed a trembling hand towards the opening. "Outer maintenance ducts. They lead away from the central pylons, away from the assembly's immediate detection, away from the corrupted too, who were slowly recovering, their dark light beginning to pulse with renewed rage." Elias pulled Vexa towards the breach. The outside was a kaleidoscope of toxic color. He could feel the pressure differential, the pull towards the void, but the conduit blast had somehow ionized the immediate atmosphere, creating a temporary pocket of breathable air around the breach. It wouldn't last. They scrambled out onto a narrow, glowing maintenance catwalk, clinging precariously to the Ethel's outer hull. The wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of strange metallic gases. Below them, the gas giant churned. Above, other Ethel drifted like silent, distant warships. The corrupted appeared at the breach behind them, their forms silhouetted against the cargo bay's remaining light. They were yelling, their voices lost in the wind. Vexa stumbled, clutching her side. My resonance output, unstable, she gasped, her patterns chaotic. The surge had taken its toll. Elias put an arm around her, supporting her. Her skin felt unnervingly fragile. Just keep moving, he said, his own lungs burning from the thin, strange air. They moved along the catwalk, the glowing surface slick with condensation from the atmosphere. The Ethel was vast, a sprawling city of light and structure suspended by invisible forces. Elias, the discordant human, and Vexa, the shattered tactician heiress, running from both the villains and the rigid society that had tried to make a joke of their lives. The joke was over. Something profound and dangerous had begun. They navigated the narrow, echoing maintenance ducts for what felt like cycles. Elias relied on instinct and the basic schematics he'd managed to piece together. Vexa, despite her weakened state, provided crucial directional guidance, her understanding of the Ethel's internal structure innate. Her light patterns remained volatile, flickering between pain, exhaustion, and a stubborn, steady resolve. The strange echo of their shared resonance lingered between them, a silent, potent connection that transcended words. He could feel her presence, her emotions, like a faint, persistent hum in his own core. It was unsettling, but also strangely comforting in this vast, hostile environment. They were hunted. They heard the distant sounds of pursuit, the measured clicks of assembly patrols, the harsher, dissonant pulses of the corrupted. They were caught between two warring factions, both of whom now saw them as a threat or a prize. Elias's human resilience, his simple physical endurance and problem-solving skills, were invaluable here. Vex's knowledge of the Ethel, her tactical mind and her connection to its resonant energy were equally vital. They were a team, bonded not by ritual or expectation, but by shared danger in that explosive moment of unintended resonance. They found a temporary refuge in a disused archival chamber deep within the Ethel's support structures. It was cold, dark, filled with dormant, crystalline data nodes, the perfect place to disappear. As soon as the door sealed behind them, plunging them into near-total darkness, save for the faint glow from Vexa, the tension broke. Vexa sank against a wall, her form trembling, her patterns a muted, exhausted blue. "We are safe, for now," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Elias slid down the wall opposite her, catching his breath. "Safe is relative," he mumbled. "Pretty sure we just blew a hole in their city." A faint, almost invisible ripple of light, something akin to dry humor, flickered across Vex's face. "A minor structural adjustment," she corrected. "The assembly will be displeased." Displeased, an understatement. They were fugitives now, but the fear wasn't Elias's primary emotion. It was overshadowed by something else, a fierce, unexpected protectiveness towards Vexa. He looked at her huddled against the wall, her usual icy control stripped away by pain and exhaustion. He saw the burden she carried, the weight of her lineage and the rigid expectations of her culture. He saw the raw courage it had taken to channel that energy, knowing the risks. He saw her, not the joke bride or the cold tactician, but the fragile, powerful being beneath, and something inside him shifted irrevocably. In the quiet darkness of the archival chamber, the unspoken bond between them deepened. The external threat, though still present, faded slightly against the backdrop of their shared vulnerability. Vex's light patterns began to stabilize, settling into a softer, warmer blue, interspersed with hesitant pulses of violet and gold. She no longer felt compelled to suppress them around him. She was simply glowing, and he could feel it, not just see it. The strange resonance echo in his chest responded to her shifts, a quiet, internal mirroring. "Why did you interfere?" Vexa asked softly, breaking the silence. Her voice was curious, devoid of accusation. "Why did you protect me?" Elias shrugged, leaning his head back against the cold metal wall. "Instinct, I guess. Seemed like the right thing to do." He paused. "Besides, you're stuck with me, remember? Right of proximity and all that. Might as well look out for my roommate." That familiar, dry humor earned him another flicker of light on her face. "The right is complicated now," she said, her gaze distant. "Our resonant attempt. It was not failure. It was something else." "Yeah," Elias agreed softly. It was more than just syncing frequencies. It felt like they had touched souls or whatever the alien equivalent was. He found himself wanting to touch her again. Not for the ritual, but just to feel that connection. That strange sense of belonging he'd felt for the first time in cycle. Vexa shifted, drawing her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. "My line," she murmured, her patterns dimming slightly. "They sent me as a sacrifice, a pawn to disgrace the assembly. My failure was intended." Elias pushed himself up and moved across the chamber, sitting beside her. He didn't touch her, but the air between them felt thick with their shared resonance. "Well, you didn't fail," he said quietly. "You succeeded spectacularly. Blew a hole in the city and took down the bad guys. At least temporarily." A small, genuine smile touched her lips, making her patterns flare with soft light. It was the first time he'd seen her smile. It was devastating. "Temporarily," she agreed. "The corrupted will pursue us, and the assembly, they will see our survival, our connection, as a threat." The stakes had risen. They were no longer just a joke. They were a dangerous anomaly, a human and an alien, bound by unintended resonance, disrupting the delicate power balance of an entire civilization. The intimacy in the chamber wasn't physical, not yet, but it was profound. It was the quiet, vulnerable space, forged in the aftermath of chaos, where two beings, stripped of their roles and expectations, saw each other for who they truly were, and in that seeing, found a connection deeper than any ritual. They spent the next few cycles in the archival chamber, subsisting on emergency rations Elias found. Vexa, the cold tactician, revealed surprising knowledge of survival techniques in the Ethel's underbelly. Elias, the human survivalist, adapted quickly to their strange environment. Their shared resonance became a constant, subtle presence, a silent communication layer beneath their spoken words. He learned to read her patterns more clearly now. The tension of hidden anxiety, the warmth of tentative trust, the fleeting burst of curiosity. She learned the nuances of his earth idioms, the dry humor that masked fear, the quiet determination in his eyes. One cycle, while sifting through dormant data nodes, Vexa's patterns pulsed with sudden intensity. "These archives, they contain records of Ethel history," she murmured, her voice awed. "Before the rigid assembly control, records of primal resonance." She touched a crystalline node, and images flickered to life on the wall. Ancient beings, their patterns vibrant and unrestrained, interacting with the Ethel's core in ways that seemed wild, untamed. And then she found something else, a symbol, pulsing with resonant energy, depicted alongside a description of a forgotten ritual. Her patterns shifted to shock, then a dawning comprehension that bordered on fear. "The rite of proximity," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the symbol. The assembly twisted it. The original rite was not about observing dissonance. It was about finding resonance in the most unexpected places. A test of compatibility across all boundaries. Her eyes widened, focusing on Elias. The joke was on them. The original rite was a precursor to a true bond of union, a bond that would merge lines, even species, if resonance was found. The true nature of the joke was revealed. It wasn't just humiliation. It was a perversion of something sacred, meant to guarantee failure, but it had succeeded in the most profound way. Her patterns pulsed with conflicting emotions, dread at the implications, and a strange, trembling hope. Elias felt the weight of it, a true bond of union. With him, the alien tactician, who had been sent as a joke brought. The unintended resonance hadn't just been a random event. It was the fulfillment of an ancient, forgotten potential. The temperature in the chamber seemed to rise. The air crackled with unspoken possibility. The shared danger had driven them together, forced them to rely on each other. The accidental resonance had sparked a connection. Now the knowledge of the true ritual, the ancient bond of union, added a new, breathtaking layer to their relationship. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was destiny, or something that felt terrifyingly close to it. Vexa looked at him, her patterns shimmering with a mixture of apprehension and longing. The original rite, it culminated in a full merging, she said, her voice barely audible, a total synchronization of resonance fields, body and essence. It was a statement, not a proposition. But the intent, the vulnerability, the raw need for connection that pulsed beneath her words was unmistakable. The joke bride was offering a true bond. The air grew thick with unspoken expectation. The knowledge of the true rite, of the possibility of a full merging, hung between them, heavy and potent. Vex's light patterns pulsed with a mixture of trepidation and a deep resonant need. Elias felt it through their lingering connection, the raw vulnerability beneath her tactical facade, the longing for a connection that wasn't dictated by ritual or politics. He reached out, this time deliberately, and took her hand. Her skin was warm now, responsive. The familiar hum of their shared resonance intensified, filling the quiet archival chamber. "Vexa," he said, his voice low and rough. "We're fugitives. We just blew a hole in your city. Your people want our heads. This isn't exactly the ideal scenario for a full merge." A wry, faint light pulsed on her face. "Ideal scenarios are rare for us now," she acknowledged. Her thumb brushed against his. "The corrupted are hunting us. The assembly will soon realize what the rite has truly become. A full merging, it would make our bond undeniable, irreversible. It might protect us, or it might condemn us both." It was a gamble of unimaginable stakes, a ritual meant for ancient, harmonious beings, attempted by a human survivor and an alien heiress on the run. But looking into her eyes, seeing the depth of feeling reflected in their dark pools and the shimmering light beneath her skin, Elias knew there was no turning back. His life had been adrift, disconnected since the crash. Here, in the heart of an alien world, with this alien woman, he felt a pull towards something real, something profound. "Okay, tactician," he said, a ghost of his usual dry humor. "Walk me through it. How do we merge?" Vexa's patterns flared with a sudden brilliant light, not fear but a potent wave of resolve and something else, anticipation. She squeezed his hand. "It is complex. It requires trust, surrender, a complete alignment of intent and feeling." Her voice softened, became more intimate. "It begins with touch, with allowing our resonance fields to fully intertwine." She shifted, moving closer to him in the dim light of the archival chamber. Her other hand came up, hesitantly to touch his face. Her skin was unbelievably smooth against his cheek. The humming intensified, vibrating deep within his bones. Her light patterns danced across her face, a breathtaking display of color. Deep indigo, vibrant gold, soft rose. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting himself fall into the feeling, into the strange, beautiful harmony that pulsed between them. When he opened them, Vexa was leaning closer, her gaze searching his. "There is no turning back, Elias," she whispered. "This is irreversible." "Good," he said, his voice firm. "Because I don't want to." Her lips met his. It wasn't like anything he'd ever experienced. There was the softness of her mouth, yes, the gentle pressure, but beneath that was the overwhelming rush of resonance. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a merging of minds, a synchronization of core frequencies. Her light patterns surged outwards, enveloping him in a cocoon of pure energy. He felt her emotions wash over him, a torrent of relief, fear, desperate hope, and a profound, aching tenderness that brought tears to his eyes. He saw more flashes of her world, her history, but also her innermost self, her quiet dedication, her carefully hidden pain, her yearning for acceptance. And he felt her experiencing him in turn, the strange solidity of his human form, the chaotic storm of his earthly emotions, the unexpected depth of his empathy. His own internal landscape was laid bare to her. The loneliness of being stranded, the quiet grief for the life lost, the fierce protective instinct that had surged when he saw her in danger. It was terrifyingly intimate, a total surrender of self. Their bodies pressed together, drawn by an unseen force. Her hands moved through his hair, grasping him as the resonance intensified, becoming a roaring tide that swept away everything but their shared connection. He felt a profound alignment, a click into place that resonated physically, emotionally, existentially. It wasn't just sex, though there was that too. A deep primal urge that was amplified and transformed by the psychic merging. It was a joining on every conceivable level, a weaving together of two disparate beings into a single powerful entity of shared resonance. He felt the moment the bond sealed, a palpable shift in the energy around them, a locking into place that felt both permanent and utterly natural. Her light patterns, which had been a chaotic storm, resolved into a new, unified display, swirling with his own presence, a unique blend of alien light and human energy. Afterwards, they lay tangled together in the quiet darkness, the intense resonance slowly subsiding, leaving behind a profound sense of peace and completion. Vexa's patterns were soft, luminous, radiating a gentle warmth. Her head was on his chest, and he could feel the steady rhythm of her heart, hear the soft intake of her breath. He felt utterly changed, irrevocably bound to this alien woman. He was no longer just Elias, the stranded human. He was part of Vexa, part of the resonant, part of something ancient and new. Vexa stirred, looking up at him. Her eyes were soft, radiant. "We are bonded," she whispered, the word freighted with meaning. Truly bonded, as the ancient rite intended. She traced a finger over the subtle patterns that had begun to appear on his own skin. Faint, shimmering lines of light that mirrored hers, his own bond mark. "Now," she said, her voice gaining a note of steel, "the assembly must acknowledge the truth, or face the consequences of denying the Athel's own resonance." They were no longer just surviving. They were coming back, and they were bringing the truth with them, and a bond that defied all expectation. They left the archival chamber not as fugitives, but with a new purpose. They would return to the heart of the Aethel, to the assembly of lines, and present their bond of union. It was audacious, dangerous, but it was their only path forward. Their resonance, now fully merged, felt like a tangible force, a shield and a weapon. They moved through the maintenance ducts and service ways, their presence now subtly disruptive to the Aethel's energy fields, yet also strangely harmonious, where their merged resonance aligned with the core frequency. Elias found he could sense the Aethel's structure, its power flow, almost as Vexa could. He wasn't just reading her emotions. He was connected to the vast floating city itself. They encountered a patrol of assembly enforcers. Their patterns were rigid, controlled, radiating suspicion. "Identify yourselves," one commanded, their voice cold. Vexa stepped forward, her posture regal despite the simple clothes she wore. Her light patterns flared, a vibrant, powerful display that resonated with undeniable authority. Elias stood beside her, his own nascent patterns pulsing in sync with hers. "I am Vexa of Kalen," she stated, her voice strong and clear. "And this is Elias. We come before the assembly under the bond of union." The enforcers hesitated, their rigid patterns flickering with surprise, then disbelief. The bond of union was a thing of legend, rarely achieved even under ideal circumstances, and never with an outsider. Their merged resonance was a physical assertion of their claim, a force the enforcers couldn't deny or dismiss. It disrupted their own controlled patterns, causing them visible discomfort. Word of their emergence spread through the Aethel like wildfire. Whispers turned to gasps as they approached the assembly chamber, the heart of the city. The assembly of lines was gathered, the High Arbiter, the heads of the dominant bloodlines, the corrupted representatives, whose dark patterns pulsed with outrage and fear. They were expecting fugitives, defeated and disgraced. They were not expecting Vexa, radiant with the power of true resonance, and Elias, the human, standing tall and bonded beside her. The chamber fell silent as they entered, all eyes, reflecting a spectrum of shock, fury, and grudging awe, fixed on them. The High Arbiter, whose patterns usually blazed with authority, was pale, their light flickering uncertainly. The corrupted pulsed with pure, uncontrolled rage. Vexa of Kalen, the High Arbiter finally managed, their voice strained. You return with the human. I return, High Arbiter. Under the bond of union, Vexa stated, holding her head high. Her resonance pulsed, filling the chamber, forcing the assembly to feel the undeniable truth of their connection. Elias felt it too, a potent affirmation of their merging. The assembly members' patterns reacted, some recoiling in disbelief, others radiating furious denial. A few, those from lines who still remembered the old ways, showing signs of wonder and recognition. The corrupted were loudest, their voices a chorus of guttural clicks and snarls. Impossible. The right was a farce. The human is discordant. Their bond is a lie. Vexa faced them, her gaze unwavering. Feel our resonance, she challenged, her patterns intensifying. Deny the Aethel's own heart if you can. Their combined resonance washed over the assembly, a wave of pure, harmonious energy that clashed violently with the corrupted's dissonance. It wasn't just proof, it was a force that physically unsettled their opponents. The political game was over. The stakes were no longer about her line's disgrace. They were about the future of the Aethel, about whether it would embrace true resonance or succumb to the corrupted's twisted discord. And Vexa and Elias, the joke bride and the human, stood at the center of it all, their bond the catalyst. The confrontation in the assembly chamber was a battle of resonance, as much as wills. The corrupted, sensing their chance, slipping away, projected waves of pure dissonance, attempting to shatter Vexa and Elias's connection. But their bond of union was forged in chaos and sealed by a true merging. It was stronger than the assembly, or the corrupted, had anticipated. Their combined resonance held firm, pushing back against the discord, causing visible pain to the corrupted and discomfort to those assembly members too deeply steeped in rigid control. Vexa spoke, not just with words, but with the undeniable truth of their merged pattern. She spoke of the true right of proximity, of the ancient purpose twisted by political ambition, of the Aethel's need for genuine resonance, not forced conformity. Elias, guided by their shared connection, added his own perspective, the value of difference, the unexpected strength found in vulnerability, the human understanding of love and loyalty that resonated with the ancient, forgotten values of their culture. He used simple, grounded language, contrasting sharply with the formal, ritualistic speech of the assembly. But the truth in his words, amplified by their shared resonance, cut through the political posturing. The assembly was divided. Some clung to the old prejudices, seeing the human as an abomination. Others, particularly the younger members and those from less dominant lines, felt the purity of Vexa and Elias's bond, the potent harmony that pulsed against the corrupted's decaying energy. The High Arbiter watched, their light patterns a confusing blend of disbelief, fear, and grudging respect. They had orchestrated a joke, and it had backfired in the most spectacular, civilization-altering way. The corrupted made their move. With a guttural cry, they surged forward, abandoning debate for violence. Energy blasts ripped through the chamber. Vexa and Elias reacted instantly, moving in perfect sync, their bond of union translating into seamless physical coordination. Vexa channeled the Aethel's energy, directed by their merged resonance, forming shields of light that deflected the blasts. Elias, drawing on his human agility and instinct, became her physical anchor, protecting her flanks, his movements unexpectedly precise. They fought together, not like two separate individuals, but like two halves of a whole. Their merged resonance was their weapon, their defense. It disrupted the corrupted's fields, leaving them open. It fortified their own, making them unnervingly resilient. The tide of the chamber's sentiment began to turn. Seeing the corrupted resort to violence within the sacred assembly space, and seeing the power and harmony of Vexa and Elias's defense, swayed many. This was not discord against order. It was true resonance against destructive dissonance. The fight was sharp, brutal. Assembly guards, galvanized by the shift in mood and Vexa's resonant command, joined the fray, their light patterns aligning hesitantly with Vexa and Elias's. The corrupted were overwhelmed, their dark patterns flickering and dying as they were subdued or driven back. The chamber fell silent again, save for the sounds of injured resonant and the lingering hum of powerful energy. Vexa and Elias stood together, their forms radiating a calm, powerful light, their bond visible and undeniable to all. The High Arbiter stared at them, defeated. The joke bride and the human had not only survived, they had purified the assembly chamber and exposed the corrupted for what they were. The immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of medical attention for the injured, containment of the defeated corrupted, and stunned silence from the remaining assembly. Vexa and Elias remained at the center of it all, their bond of union a tangible presence that permeated the air. The High Arbiter, stripped of much of their authority, approached them cautiously. Their patterns now radiated a humble, almost timid light. "The assembly acknowledges the truth of your bond," they stated, their voice devoid of its former arrogance. "The right of proximity was fulfilled in ways we could not foresee. There was no going back. Their merging had fundamentally altered the Aethel's resonance, strengthening its core, proving that true harmony could come from unexpected sources." Vexa's status was irrevocably changed. No longer a pawn for a political joke, she was a figure of immense power, a living embodiment of the Aethel's true potential. And Elias, the discordant human, was bonded to her, an integral part of that potential. His status, too, was transformed. He was no longer a pest, but a co-pillar of a new era for the resonant. The assembly, humbled and fractured, had to adapt. The old hierarchies, based on rigid bloodlines and suppressed emotions, began to crumble. Resonance, true, unfettered resonance, became the new measure of worth, and theirs, Vexa and Elias's, was the most powerful. In the cycles that followed, the Aethel began to heal. The dissonance fields were purged. Communication with the other Aethel, previously strained by the corrupted's influence, became clearer, more harmonious. Vexa, alongside Elias, guided the transition. Her tactical mind, combined with his grounded perspective and their unique merged resonance, proved invaluable. Their private life in the quiet moments away from the demands of leadership was one of deep, abiding intimacy. The physical merging had been profound, leaving them physically and emotionally intertwined. They could communicate with thoughts and feelings as much as words, understanding each other on a level no one else could touch. The raw, unfiltered glimpse into each other's souls during the merging had forged a trust deeper than any their cultures had previously known. Elias taught Vexa about laughter, about simple comforts, about the messy, illogical beauty of human emotion. Vexa taught him about the nuances of resonance, the ancient history of her people, the quiet strength found in vulnerability. One quiet cycle, weeks after the battle, Vexa came to him, her patterns radiating a soft, hesitant light. She touched his arm, her hand trembling slightly. "Elias," she whispered, her voice full of emotion she no longer suppressed. "My resonance is changing. It is amplifying, creating a new, separate frequency within me." Elias felt it too, a faint, hopeful hum within their shared field, originating from Vex. He looked at her face, saw the wonder and the vulnerability in her eyes. The bond of union, sealed in desperation and power, had fulfilled its ancient purpose. The joke bride, sent to disgrace her line and prove the human's discord, was carrying new life, a life born of the unexpected, potent harmony they had found. And the faces of those who had sent her, who had intended only humiliation, were etched forever with the image of their own profound failure, replaced by the undeniable, resonant truth of the life she carried. The news spread through the Aethel, then to the other floating cities, like a wave of pure, astonished resonance. The heiress of Kaelin, the cold tactician who had been sent on a ritualistic fool's errand, was carrying a child of the bond of union, a child of Vexa and Elias, the human, the ones who had defeated the corrupted and revitalized the Aethel's core resonance. You should have seen their faces. The assembly members who had sneered, the rival bloodlines who had plotted, the corrupted remnants still in containment, who pulsed with impotent fury. Their expressions, visible through their light patterns, were a mixture of disbelief, shock, and dawning realization. The ultimate refutation of their judgment, their politics, their very understanding of resonance, was growing inside Vex. Their child would be a living embodiment of the potential found in merging seemingly incompatible frequencies, a testament to the strength of a bond built not on ritual convenience, but on shared vulnerability, courage, and unexpected love. It wasn't just a political shift, it was a biological and spiritual revolution. The aethel culture, rigid for cycles, was forced to change, to adapt to this new, resonant reality. The prejudices against Elias dissolved, replaced by a curious reverence. He was the father of a new lineage, a line that would carry both resonant light and human resilience. Vexa, no longer bound by ancient twisted laws, flourished. Her tactical brilliance found new outlets in building a more inclusive society. Her emotional restraint melted away, revealing a warmth and depth that captivated her people. Elias remained grounded, bringing his Earth perspective to their alien world. He taught them about the simple joy of building things with your hands, the comfort of dry humor, the quiet strength of human connection. He was a bridge between worlds, anchored by his profound love for Vexa and their growing child. Their home, once a sterile cargo bay meant for a joke, became a place of warmth, light, and laughter. Vexa's patterns, always beautiful, now pulsed with a soft, steady rhythm of life, a constant reminder of the miracle they had created. Elias would often sit with her, his hand resting gently on her growing abdomen, feeling the faint, burgeoning resonance within. He, the stranded human, had found more than rescue. He had found a home, a purpose, a family in the heart of an alien civilization. And the joke, intended to humiliate, had become the most beautiful truth. The future stretched before them, uncertain, but filled with resonant light. A future built on a bond that began as a jest and became everything. A testament to the power of unexpected connection and the universe's infinite capacity for wonder.